So you've got your new plant, it's acclimated to your house, congratulations, it's ready to now be styled in your house. But the real question now is, where on earth, I won't swear, where on earth do you put it? I mean, how do you make it look really good in your space without overcrowding it or making your home feel like a bit of a garden centre? Well, today I'm going to share a simple trick with you that will actually change everything you know about styling and how to style your plants. When I first started my plant journey, I did actually go through a lot of trial and error, especially when it came to styling. To be honest, I'm still trialing different things here and there. Now, I have to admit, I'm not a designer. I hold my hands up, honestly. My house needs a lot of renovation before I can style it further. I look at some people and they can just throw together any plants and decor and it magically looks perfect like Harry Potter style. Seriously, I am so jealous of those people. If you're one of them, please do add your comments below. Share your wisdom with the world. But if you're anything like me, you could use a little bit of help and direction in the styling department. So these tips today that I'm going to share are what I've learned from growing plants, and actually a little bit of tips thrown in there from what I've learned with continuing this YouTube channel around photography and videography. It's all about styling and looking beautiful and creating a space you love without the stress of making it look absolutely perfect. Now, before we jump into the styling, just a quick reminder, styling doesn't matter with your plants if your plant isn't getting the care it needs. That's the hard part about plant styling, in my opinion. Plants just need the right conditions to thrive, and if you're not paying attention to the plant needs first, your styling will just quickly go downhill. So just make sure your plants are getting the right amount of light, water, humidity, temperature in that space before you go ahead and style it. That's super important. For example, you can't put a bright, light-loving plant in a dark corner and expect it to be happy. I mean, that obviously makes sense. And watering needs also play a role. Plants on moss poles or climbing plants need different care sometimes compared to low maintenance or succulents or trailing plants. So it all differs a little bit. So you do just need to get to know your plants a little bit beforehand. So before you start styling, check where each plant is going to be happiest, and that will make styling a lot easier. Okay, so I promised one simple styling trick. Here it is. The one plant styling trick that will honestly change everything in your home is grouping your plants in odd numbers. I know it sounds ridiculously simple and a bit weird if you haven't heard of it before, but here's the thing. There's actually a reason why this works so well, thanks to nature. And it's not just about making your space look cute. This trick actually taps into a natural design principle that you're already seeing all around in nature. Odd number groupings can feel balanced and can instantly transform your space without making it look like a complete mess. Honestly, stay with me here. When I learned about this rule, it was a bit of a game changer for me once I started to implement it and really understand it. So odd numbered groupings create a nice, weird flow about them. Whereas if you put things in even numbers, it creates something that feels a little bit too rigid and stagnant and like regimental kind of thing. So whether you're putting plants on a shelf, whether you're putting plants in a large corner on a side table, go for odd numbers because there is just something about it that feels just a little bit more right and more evenly balanced, even though it's not even numbers, weirdly. Anyway, you get the point. But here's the part that I love the most, right? This tip is not about perfection. It's about flow. It's about a nice, beautiful, natural, organic flow in the way you style things. Your plants need to feel like they belong in that space, not like they've been put there with too much purpose, like a perfect display. Now, don't get me wrong, symmetry plays a part in a lot of styling, but for me, symmetry just never looks good. It looks great in some photos, I admit. Like if you've got a door space and you've got one plant on each side, sometimes that looks good. But for me, I prefer things a little bit random and a little things weird and wonderful, but still looking beautiful and natural. Have you ever heard of the Fibonacci sequence? I'm a bit of a math geek at times. I loved puzzles and numbers. I still love puzzles and numbers actually, but I loved them when I was younger. But anyway, mathematicians from a long time ago discovered this natural pattern that you see everywhere in nature, from the arrangement of leaves and branches in trees, to the way petals spiral on flowers, to how pine cones grow. Like this Fibonacci sequence, this beautiful, weird, odd numbered sequence is found in nature everywhere around us. We see it every day without even realizing it. It's actually nature's design, which is why the odd numbering in your plants just feels more relaxed and more beautiful. And when you group your plants in odd numbers, like a set of 3, a set of 5, or even a set of 7, naturally create balance without making things look too symmetrical, look too rigid. So it's not just a rule, it's like nature's design, which I think is just beautiful. So yeah, odd numbered groupings are honestly a game changer when you start seeing it and implementing it, and you won't even realize it. But of course, there are some other things around, not just odd numbers, that will help you create a more flowing space. And I want to share them with you as well today. So one thing you could do is think about creating a focal point with one of your plants. It's like any good room design, you need something that draws your eye, especially when you look at those plant styling pictures, you'll always see one big plant in the corner. So in this case, pick one plant in your space, in your shelf or on your side table, pick one main, probably larger plant that really stands out. Now, if you only plan to style a single plant, choose a larger plant. It could be like a big jungle monstera, it could be bird of paradise, it could be fiddle leaf fig. They're usually very good focal plants because they're tall and big and they make a statement. If, however, you want to style several plants, choose your focal plant, then arrange the rest of your plants in an odd numbered way around that plant. And by the way, if you're new here, this is actually part of a whole series I'll be doing. It's called The Ultimate Guide to Buying the Perfect Plant. It's a whole playlist if you want to go check it out, where we've covered everything from shopping tips for beginners, a couple of add-ons for more intermediate advanced, the best plants for your home, and now we're diving into the styling piece. So if you've missed any of these earlier videos, please feel free to catch up and go back. I'll leave the link to the playlist up here. There's so much info there that will help you bring a new plant home and build your confidence as a plant parent. Second rule is something called the rule of thirds. And I only learned about this in my YouTube era over the last 12 months. Now, it's a styling tip used in photography all around the world and videography. You'll see it without even realizing it. But when I learned about this, it changed the way I was trying to position my plants as well as position myself in videos crazily. Now, bear with me here. Gets a little designy. Take your space that you're decorating, or just take the screen, for example, and you want to split the screen up into thirds. So thirds vertically, 1, 2, 3, and thirds horizontally, kind of like a tic-tac-toe board. Then you want to place your focal plant at one of the intersections. And I hope that's lined up on my screen, right? Because I don't know where those intersections are, how big it is. This makes things just look a little bit more natural, like it's naturally where your eyes want to go. It's like giving the plant like a little spotlight without it looking out of place or just stuck centrally weirdly in the middle. If you have more than one plant, like 5 plants, then the trick is to start with the main plant at one of these intersections and then place others around it. And they don't need to be lined up perfectly. They can be like on the lines or near the intersections. I like to look for asymmetry where I can, but still placing within one of the thirds or one of the intersections. It just keeps everything feeling balanced and not too crowded. If, however, you're working with a lot more plants, use the grid just to spread them out. Don't just place them all in the center or as a group together in one spot. Give the plant space to breathe and still stand on their own a little bit while keeping things looking balanced and flowy with this rule of thirds. You can make the space feel like it has a nice flow without everything being lined up perfectly by learning to use this grid. Remember though, rules are meant to be broken. Once you get the hang of the rule of the thirds and how it works, you can then start to play around with it. You'll find that some plant arrangements look great when you don't stick strictly to the grid. So use the rule of thirds as your guide, but remember, you can always mix things up once you understand how it helps your plants look the best in that space. You can use this styling rule of thirds grid anywhere. You can apply this to shelves, you can apply this to side tables, you can apply this almost anywhere, all photos, for example. It just adds a nice natural flow and keeps things quite dynamic in your photograph or shot or plant space or whatever it is. And sometimes you don't even realize you're seeing it. But you will now that I've said it. You'll see this rule of thirds everywhere when you look on YouTube or photography or magazines, etc. Sorry, but seriously, it's very cool. Another tip you might want to think about when plant styling is adding texture and layering. I remember right at the beginning when I was first getting into plants and trying to figure out styling, I read this book and it told me one simple tip, and that was about being mindful of what pots I picked, as in be mindful of a color. The advice was to choose 1 or 2 colors and stick with that the whole time. And I took that and I couldn't believe how simple that point was, but I've really appreciated it since then. I chose white pots, a couple of terracotta ones thrown in there, nothing too fancy, just simple and natural because that's the aesthetic I was going for. And honestly, that decision just helped me so much. Like, it's incredible looking back how much that tip has helped. That one simple trick taught me something. Sometimes, honestly, less is more. It's okay to stick to a simple color scheme that works for you. You can make things interesting by adding texture. And you'll see in my pots, I've got glossy ones, I've got matte ones, I've got round short ones, tall ones, weird shaped ones. But you can also do this not just with pots, you can do this with the different types of plants. So for example, think glossy leaves with matte leaves, or tall plants with short plants, or moss pole plants with trailing plants. Think about stacking some plants on maybe some small books to add more depth or more layering, just a little bit of interest. Trying to add this sense of layering and texture, just give your space a little bit of movement and dimension and interest to that space. And then there's one final thing I want to throw in here, and that is use of negative space. This is a big styling thing, but it comes really handy when you're going into your plants. Make sure you leave enough space around your plants so they can breathe and not feel or look overcrowded. Negative space plays just as an important part in your plant styling as the plants themselves. When you crowd a space with too many plants, it just looks messy. It looks like a garden center. Actually, garden centers still look nice and breathable because they have a lot of space and walkways, so that doesn't make sense. But anyway, the point is you want to give your plants room to breathe. And it just highlights each plant out and lets each plant stand out, but at the same time, making the whole space have flow and room and texture and all of that stuff. It just adds a little bit more depth to that point. Think of it like breathing room for your plants. Each one should have its own little space to shine, but then when you look at it as a whole, it also looks amazingly beautiful and natural and pleasing to the eye. So by grouping your plants in odd numbers, you're tapping into this like natural rhythm in nature and plants and everything. And that instantly makes your space feel just that little bit more harmonious, that little bit more balanced. And it's a simple trick that can change the whole vibe of your plant jungle without you even realizing it. And hey, look, if you're someone who can throw together a beautiful Pinterest-worthy space with lots of colors and lots of textures and lots of different things without breaking a sweat like I am right now, I am super jealous of you. Please add your gift to the world in the comments below. Let us hear your tips and tricks. I'd love to hear anything from yourself. People who just have natural art abilities are just amazing to me. But if you're like me and you need these tips and you found any of these styling tips helpful, please do me a favor, hit the like button and just let me know you're enjoying the content that I'm giving you so I can keep continuing to provide more content. And of course, all of these rules, just remember to take them as you like. The whole point of styling plants in your house is to do what you like. So if one of these rules doesn't work for you, if you don't like asymmetry and you like things a little bit more symmetric, do that. Take the rules you don't like, throw them out the window, and only use the ones that you vibe with. It's much better for you. It's your space. Do what you love. Make that space look how you want it to. Nothing else matters. So when it comes to plants in your home, of course, styling is a really big part. It's a really big part for me, but there's a whole lot more to it. It's part of the series. Please do go and have a look at it if you haven't seen it before. But I've decided to add one more bonus video to this series. It's going to be a this and that video. So I'm going to go back to the plant store. Bonus. I'm going to have a look around. I want to show you plants that you probably should avoid, that are probably too high maintenance, or they might even cause a little bit of trouble. I'm looking at you, Ivy. Ivy the plant. There's no person here. There's no Ivy person here. Stick around and stay tuned for my this and that plant video recommendations coming up in this video next. Sending you off with leaves, love and laughter all week long, all month long. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll see you in this video next. See you later. Probably a lot cooler than me saying it sounds cool. Anyway, okay, there's too much. Let's keep moving on.